The CEO found who had been paying his father's grocery bill. It was the woman he had fired. Daniel Mercer knew his father hated owing anyone money, which was why the grocery receipt on Walter Mercer's kitchen table bothered him before he even understood what he was looking at. At the bottom of the receipt, beneath $83.41 worth of groceries, someone from Bell's Market had written in blue ink, "Paid, M. Reynolds account." Daniel stared at the name for several seconds before picking up his phone and calling the store. The manager recognized Walter immediately. "Your dad shops here every Thursday," she said. "Sometimes Tuesday too if he forgets something." Daniel looked toward the nearly empty living room. His father was out walking, although Daniel had specifically asked him to wait until he arrived. "Who is M. Reynolds?" There was a pause on the other end. "You should probably ask your father." Daniel's voice hardened. "I'm asking you." Another pause followed before she finally answered. "Maya Reynolds." Daniel stopped moving. Maya Reynolds had worked for Mercer Industrial for almost 9 years. 6 weeks earlier, Daniel had personally fired her. Daniel looked down at the receipt again. "Why is Maya Reynolds paying for my father's groceries?" The manager lowered her voice. "She asked us not to make a big thing out of it." Daniel asked how long it had been happening, and after a few seconds of keyboard clicks, she answered, "About 5 months." Daniel sat down at the kitchen table. 5 months. Maya had been paying Walter's grocery bill for almost 4 months before Daniel fired her, and she had continued afterward. Before he could ask anything else, the back door opened, and Walter walked into the kitchen carrying a small paper bag from the neighborhood bakery. At 74, he still moved with the stubborn confidence of a man who believed age was mostly an administrative problem. His gray hair was too long around the ears, his flannel shirt was buttoned crooked at the bottom, and his reading glasses hung from a cord around his neck. He saw the receipt in Daniel's hand and stopped. Daniel ended the call. "Dad." Walter sighed. "I told them not to put her name on those." Daniel stared at him. "So you knew?" Walter put the bakery bag on the counter. "Of course I knew. Maya has been buying your groceries?" "Not buying all of them. 5 months, Dad. Sometimes I paid." Daniel pushed the receipt toward him. "Why is the woman I fired paying for my father's food?" Walter's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. He looked at Daniel for a long moment and said, "Maybe that's not the first question you should be asking." Daniel leaned back. "What should I be asking?" Walter took off his glasses. "Why did she notice I needed help before you did?" Daniel felt the words land somewhere. He did not want them. He stood and opened the refrigerator. There was milk, half a carton of eggs, mustard, sliced cheese, 3 apples, and a container of soup. "That's it?" he asked. Walter replied that he had planned to shop tomorrow. Daniel looked back at the receipt. Maya was paying tomorrow. Walter's jaw tightened. Daniel closed the refrigerator harder than necessary. "You should have told me." Walter looked almost amused. "You mean during one of our 7-minute phone calls?" Daniel turned. "That's not fair." Walter nodded. "No, it isn't." Daniel reminded him that he transferred money into his account every month. Walter reminded Daniel that he sent it back every month. Daniel called the whole situation ridiculous. Walter agreed. Then he started making coffee. Daniel demanded to know what had happened to his money. Walter said nothing had happened to it. He had enough. Daniel asked again why Maya had paid. Walter simply said, "Ask her." Daniel almost laughed. "I fired her." Walter pressed the button on the coffee machine. "I remember. She probably won't take my call." Walter shrugged. "Then I guess being CEO isn't as useful as you thought." Maya did take Daniel's call, but she did not let him finish the first sentence. "No." Daniel stood beside the window of his office, overlooking the river and the manufacturing buildings beyond it. "I haven't asked anything yet." Maya replied, "You're calling about Walter." Daniel asked how she knew. "Because you're 6 weeks late if you're calling about me." He closed his eyes briefly. "Maya." She told him she was working. He asked where. That stopped being your concern when you terminated my employment. Daniel said he needed to talk to her. No, you want to talk to me. Those aren't the same thing. He asked for 10 minutes. She said no. He asked for 5. She said no again. Then he said, I found a grocery receipt. Silence. Your name was on it. Maya exhaled slowly and said she had told Bells not to do that. Daniel told her his father had said the same thing. Then you have your answer. No, I don't. Maya replied, you do, you just don't like it. Daniel asked why she had been paying for his father's groceries. Maya answered simply, because sometimes he needed groceries. Daniel reminded her Walter had money. So do you, she said. Apparently, money doesn't solve every problem. Daniel tried to reimburse her. Maya refused. He said accounting could handle it. She told him if Mercer Industrial deposited anything into her account without permission, she would send it back, just like Walter sent his money back. Daniel was bothered by how much she seemed to know. How much do you know about my father's finances? He asked. Less than you should, Maya replied. Daniel asked to meet. Eventually, she agreed to 5 minutes at Cooper's Diner on 9th the following evening. Before hanging up, she added, don't bring a check. Maya arrived 3 minutes late wearing dark jeans, a navy sweater, and the same expression she used to wear in executive meetings when somebody had spent 20 minutes explaining why a problem could not be solved before she quietly explained how to solve it. Daniel stood when she approached. You don't have to do that, she said. Daniel asked if she meant sitting down. Pretend we're having a normal meeting, she replied. After coffee was poured, Daniel began with the question that had been bothering him most. How much? Maya stirred cream into her cup. That's really where you want to start? Yes, then this is going to be a short conversation. Daniel told her he wanted to reimburse her. Maya said she did not want reimbursement. You paid for my father's groceries. I helped Walter. With money, sometimes. Daniel insisted that it came from her, so he should repay it. Maya shook her head. Because then you get to turn this into a transaction. Daniel said buying groceries was a transaction. Maya looked directly at him. Buying groceries was a transaction. Helping your father wasn't. She explained that Walter had started coming into the office more often after Daniel's mother died. Every Wednesday for a while, he brought Daniel lunch and often waited in reception because Daniel was in meetings. Daniel remembered the brown paper bags left on the corner of his desk, sandwiches from the deli his father liked, soup in winter, once even a slice of pie. While Walter waited, Maya talked to him. Mostly ordinary things. Baseball. Day. His garden. Daniel's mother, Maya's daughter Emily, and her terrible relationship with algebra. Walter, a retired high school math teacher, had started leaving little math problems on sticky notes for Emily. Eventually, Maya and Walter became friends. The grocery payments began in February. Maya had seen Walter at Bell's with a cart containing bread, soup, oatmeal, bananas, chicken, fruit, and coffee. She watched him put the coffee back. Then the chicken. Then the fruit. He was trying to keep the total below $25. Daniel stared at her. That doesn't make sense. Maya said she had thought the same thing. She paid for the groceries, which led to a 10-minute argument in aisle 6 because Walter hated accepting help. Daniel asked why his father was short on money. Maya hesitated before saying Walter had been trying to pay medical bills left after Daniel's mother died. Daniel immediately reached for his phone. Maya put her hand flat on the table. Don't. Daniel looked at her. What? Don't turn this into something you solve before you understand it. Daniel said solving it was exactly what he intended to do. Maya replied, and that's exactly why he didn't tell you. Walter had told Maya that Daniel had already paid enough while his mother was sick. Specialists, home care, medical equipment, insurance gaps. Walter did not want his son paying one more bill. Daniel said, he's my father. That's what family does. Maya's expression shifted slightly, and Daniel heard the irony in his own words a second too late. 6 weeks earlier, when he had terminated Maya, he had told her, "This company cannot run on personal loyalty. It runs on accountability." Maya clearly remembered the sentence too. Daniel insisted her firing had nothing to do with the grocery situation. Maya said she had not suggested otherwise. Daniel then brought up why she had been fired. She had bypassed reporting procedure and sent confidential supplier information directly to the audit committee. The supplier failure had cost Mercer Industrial almost $900,000. Maya reminded him she had sent the warning to Grant twice before escalating it. Daniel said, "Grant claimed otherwise." Maya responded, "I know what Grant says." She never raised her voice. That made the silence heavier. Daniel changed the subject back to his father. "You continued paying after I fired you." Maya looked genuinely confused that he considered that surprising. "Yes. Why? Because you fired me. Walter didn't." Daniel had no response. Maya explained Walter had called her 2 days after she lost her job and apologized for Daniel. He had been worried she would stop talking to him because things had become awkward. Maya told Walter that losing her job did not erase 3 years of knowing him. Then, Walter had asked whether Emily passed statistics. She barely had. Daniel laughed despite himself. It did not solve anything, but something shifted. The next morning, Daniel went to his father's house before work carrying a folder. Walter was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. Daniel placed the folder beside his coffee. It contained the remaining hospital bills. Walter immediately became angry. Daniel had called the billing office and discovered there was still $27,000 outstanding. Walter confirmed he had been paying it himself. Daniel could not understand why a 74-year-old man living on pension income would cut grocery spending instead of asking his son for help. Walter finally explained that Daniel's mother had hated owing people and had wanted everything settled. Daniel said she also would have wanted Walter to eat. When Daniel asked why Walter would not let him help, Walter laughed once. "You keep saying that word." Daniel asked which word. "Help." Walter folded the newspaper. He reminded Daniel that while his mother was sick, Daniel had truly helped. He had attended appointments, called doctors, argued with insurance, sat beside her when she was afraid. Then she died and Daniel went back to work. Daniel defended himself. He had called Walter every week. Walter pointed out those calls usually came from Daniel's car. Daniel had sent money, hired a lawn service, arranged gutter cleaning, and ordered meals. "I was trying to help," Daniel said. Walter nodded. "I know." Daniel asked what had been wrong with any of it. Walter looked at him and answered, "Nothing. Except none of those things were you." Walter then told him something that cut deeper. Maya had once sat with him in the company lobby for 20 minutes and asked what Daniel's mother had been like before she became sick. Nobody had asked him that in months. Maya remembered Walter's wife's birthday. She checked on him on the first anniversary of her death. When she saw him putting groceries back on the shelf, she did not make him feel stupid. Daniel quietly replied, "I wouldn't have made you feel stupid." Walter merely raised an eyebrow. Daniel almost argued, then stopped. Walter smiled faintly. "There you go." Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel started noticing things he had ignored before. He noticed his father called him less often than he thought. He noticed how frequently he told Walter, "Can I call you back?" and then forgot. He noticed Maya had created a handwritten grocery list template taped inside the pantry door. Milk, eggs, protein, fruit, something green, something you actually enjoy. He found a jar beside the refrigerator filled with folded notes. One said, "One real dinner. Soup doesn't count." Another reminded Walter to call Emily because she needed help with interest rates. Daniel asked about them. Walter shrugged. "We had a system." Daniel realized he was jealous, not romantically, but because another person had occupied space in his father's life that Daniel assumed belonged automatically to him. At Mercer Industrial, another problem was waiting. The supplier Maya had warned about missed a second delivery deadline. The consequences were smaller this time, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Daniel called Grant Holloway, the company's CFO of 11 years, into his office and placed 3 emails on the desk. "Maya sent these to you." Grant admitted she had. Daniel reminded him he had previously said Maya never formally escalated the vendor risk. Grant argued that emailing him was not the same as following the proper procedure. Daniel pointed out that she had attached cost projections twice. Grant finally admitted that the company had been 3 days from closing a refinancing package. If he had formally flagged the supplier as unstable, the bank would have started asking questions. Grant had wanted 48 hours. Maya refused to wait and went around him to the audit chair. Daniel realized Grant had not been stealing, sabotaging the company, or acting out of pure malice. He had been frightened. He thought delaying the warning might protect 1,400 jobs. Then the supplier failed, and when blame moved toward him, Grant allowed it to settle on Maya Toshwa. Grant reminded Daniel of something important. "You made the decision." Daniel had indeed made the decision to fire her. He could not blame Grant for the fact that he wanted a clean explanation to a complicated problem. That afternoon, Daniel called Maya Toshwa. "I owe you an apology." Maya answered. That was fast. Daniel told her he had spoken to Grant and confirmed she had warned him twice. He admitted Grant delayed formal escalation because of the refinancing. Maya was unsurprised. Daniel asked why she had not said that during her termination meeting. Maya answered simply, "I tried." Daniel remembered interrupting her. He remembered saying, "The decision has already been made." He told her the internal review would be reopened and asked her to participate. She refused. He then offered her old position back with a 20% increase and full restoration of seniority. Maya immediately said no. Daniel could not understand why she would not even consider it. Maya told him she had spent 9 years thinking about Mercer Industrial, and now she wanted something else. Daniel asked what would make her come back. "Nothing right now." Daniel said there had to be something. Maya asked why. Daniel answered, "Because I was wrong." Maya's response was simple. "That doesn't create an obligation for me." Daniel asked what else he was supposed to do besides return her job, her salary, and the grocery money. Maya said, "Understand what you broke." Daniel asked what he had broken. She answered with one word: trust. Walter found Daniel's failed job offer entertaining. When Daniel told him Maya had refused, Walter smiled into his coffee. "I like her?" Daniel said he had noticed. Walter told him he was not used to hearing no dawete. Daniel insisted people told him no constantly. Walter replied, "Not from people who mean it." A week later, Walter asked Daniel to drive him to Bell's Market. Daniel almost suggested grocery delivery, then caught himself and simply said yes. They went on Thursday afternoon. Walter spent 40 minutes comparing coffee prices. He put chicken in the cart, then apples, then removed the apples because they were expensive that week. Daniel put them back. Walter immediately glared at him. "Don't, dot." Daniel said they were only $4. Walter answered, $4 is money." Daniel reached for his wallet. Walter stopped the cart. "If you're going to do this, take me home." Daniel froze. "Do what?" Walter replied, "Turn everything into a rescue." Daniel slowly put his wallet away and asked, "What do you want me to do?" Walter seemed surprised by the question. After a moment he answered, "Shop with me." So Daniel did. They compared coffee. They argued about cereal. Walter insisted canned tomatoes were cheaper on the lower shelf. Daniel discovered his father had extremely strong opinions about rotisserie chicken. At checkout, Walter handed over his own card. The cashier glanced toward a note beneath the register, and then at Daniel. Walter noticed. "Use mine." She hesitated. "Mr. Mercer, Maya already." Walter cut her off. "Not today." He paid. Outside, Daniel loaded the bags into the car. Walter handed him one and said, "Carry something." Daniel laughed, and for the first time in months, Walter laughed too. That night, Daniel texted Maya. "Dad paid for his own groceries today." 3 minutes later, she replied, "Good." Daniel typed another message. "I carried the bags." Her answer came immediately. Now that is progress. Daniel smiled at his phone longer than he should have. The internal review took another month. Maya refused to return to the company, but she agreed to provide a written statement after Daniel explained exactly what the board was reviewing. No vague request. No pressure. No secret meeting. Maya sent 11 pages of emails, timelines, and notes. The evidence confirmed that while she had bypassed normal procedure, she had done so only after the normal procedure failed. Grant had not fabricated evidence, but he had allowed Daniel to believe Maya's behavior was the central failure. The board's legal advisor proposed a simple resolution: change Maya's termination to resignation, pay her 6 months' salary, offer a neutral reference, and close the matter. Daniel personally brought the proposal to Maya at the same diner where they had first met after the grocery receipt. She read it once and pushed it back. No. Daniel said it was a strong settlement. Maya called it a payoff. Daniel pointed out there was no admission of wrongdoing from her. Maya answered that there was no admission from Mercer either. Daniel said the board would never agree to one. Maya replied, "Then we're done." Daniel reminded her the agreement would give her almost $70,000. Maya knew. She had been freelancing for a nonprofit and doing bookkeeping work at night. The money mattered to her. That made her refusal more powerful, not less. Daniel asked what she wanted. My record corrected. Daniel said they could change the separation code. Maya said that was not enough. She wanted the reason corrected. Daniel warned her that if the board resisted, she could end up with less or even nothing. Maya looked directly at him and said, "Yes." Daniel finally understood. She was choosing her name over the money. Maya told him, "You asked me what trust costs. This is what it costs." At the next board meeting, Daniel rejected the proposed settlement. The audit chair warned him that formally admitting the termination was wrong could create liability. Daniel placed Maya's documented timeline in front of every director. "I made the termination decision," he said. "I made it with incomplete information because I accepted an explanation that was easier than the facts." Grant looked down. Daniel continued. Maya Reynolds escalated a material vendor concern. She did bypass normal procedure, but only after the normal procedure failed. Her termination for cause was not justified. One director warned him again about the exposure. Daniel thought of Walter removing apples from his grocery cart. He thought of Maya telling him to understand what he broke. Then he said, "Because it's true." The board requested Maya attend the next session. Daniel told her she did not have to. Maya said she knew and went anyway. She sat at the far end of the conference table where she had once taken notes during quarterly meetings. The board's attorney asked whether she believed Grant deliberately tried to damage the company. Maya said no. He asked whether Grant deliberately caused the vendor failure. Again, no. He asked whether Daniel had retaliated against her personally. Maya looked at Daniel before answering, "No." The attorney seemed surprised. "Then what exactly are you asking this board to acknowledge?" Maya took a breath. "That when I raised a risk nobody wanted to deal with, the company protected its hierarchy instead of the information. And when the problem became expensive, the easiest person to blame was the person with the least authority in the room." Nobody interrupted. She continued, "I'm not asking you to call anyone evil. I'm asking you to correct the record so the next employee who raises a problem doesn't have to calculate whether telling the truth will cost them their job. The audit chair asked what that correction would look like. Maya slid a single page across the table. It was not a settlement. It was a policy revision requiring material operational risks to be logged independently of department hierarchy, with time-stamped acknowledgement and access to compliance if no action occurred within a defined period. Daniel almost smiled. Of course, she had brought one. Grant objected that the policy could create unnecessary escalation. Maya agreed that it probably would. Then, Grant surprised everyone. It would also have prevented what happened. Maya looked at him and nodded. Yes. That was the moment the room truly changed. Not because somebody confessed or was publicly humiliated, but because the person with the strongest reason to resist finally stopped resisting. The board corrected Maya's employment record. Her termination for cause was withdrawn. Mercer Industrial issued a written statement confirming she had acted in good faith regarding the supplier risk. Her policy proposal went to compliance for implementation. Grant remained CFO, but the board issued a formal warning and removed unilateral control over risk escalation. Maya accepted back pay for the weeks between her dismissal and the correction. She refused the larger settlement. Daniel did not try to change her mind. 2 days later, Walter invited both of them to dinner. Maya arrived, carrying a pie. Daniel arrived carrying groceries. Walter opened the door, looked at Daniel's bags, and immediately asked, "Who paid?" Daniel sighed. "I did." Walter frowned. Daniel raised a hand. "You gave me a list." Walter said, "I gave you money." Daniel reminded him it had only been $20. Walter complained that the chicken was supposed to be on sale. Daniel said it was not. Walter looked at Maya. "You see what I deal with?" Maya smiled. "I've seen worse." Daniel muttered, "I'm standing right here." Maya replied, "I know." They ate at the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was what Daniel remembered most. Walter told the same story about meeting Daniel's mother for what was probably the 100th time. Maya laughed at the correct places. Daniel washed the dishes. Walter tried to stop him, and Maya told Walter to sit down and enjoy the miracle. Later, while Walter searched the living room for a baseball game, Maya stood beside Daniel at the kitchen sink. She asked about the company correcting her record. Daniel confirmed it had been done. Maya pointed out he could have fixed her record without fixing the system. Daniel admitted that would have been easier. "I'm trying to become suspicious of easy answers," he said. Maya smiled. "That must be exhausting." Daniel answered, "You have no idea." Daniel then thanked her for caring about his father. Maya shook her head. "You don't owe me for caring about him." Daniel replied, "I know." It was the first time he had said those words without trying to attach money to them. Maya noticed. He told her Walter had finally explained the medical debt. Maya asked if Daniel paid all of it. He said Walter would not let him. "Good," Maya replied. Daniel laughed. "That was not the answer I expected." He explained they had made a plan. Walter would pay part each month. Daniel would pay part, and Walter would see every statement. Nothing would happen without his knowledge. Maya said it sounded reasonable. Daniel said his father hated it. Maya replied that this also sounded reasonable. Then, Daniel apologized. This time, there was nothing attached to the apology. No job offer. No check. No explanation. "I'm sorry I fired you before I finished listening." Maya became still. She admitted she had been angry at him for a long time, and was still angry sometimes. Daniel said he understood. She told him helping Walter had never been an act of forgiveness. Daniel said he understood that too. Maya looked at him. Daniel smiled slightly. "I've learned several new sentences." Maya laughed. From the living room, Walter shouted, Are you two washing one plate per hour? Maya called back. Quality control. Walter muttered something about executives. Over the following months, Daniel saw Maya occasionally, never because he summoned her. Sometimes she stopped by Walter's house. Sometimes Walter invited both of them somewhere and pretended it had happened accidentally. Maya eventually accepted a full-time position with a regional nonprofit, helping small businesses organize finances and procurement. Daniel did not offer to beat the salary, although he thought about it. Instead, he congratulated her. Maya also removed her payment information from Bell's Market. Walter protested for approximately 4 minutes before admitting it could not continue forever. Daniel started grocery shopping with him twice a month. Not because Walter could not go alone, but because Daniel had finally understood the difference. Sometimes helping meant solving a problem. Sometimes helping meant showing up. One Thursday afternoon, Daniel and Walter were standing in the produce section, arguing about tomatoes when Maya appeared at the end of the aisle. Walter saw her first and shouted her name. She pushed her cart toward them. Daniel looked inside and noticed coffee, soup, and bananas. Maya looked into Walter's cart. Chicken, apples, something green. Walter pointed proudly toward a bag of spinach. Evidence. Maya nodded approvingly. Daniel said, I chose the apples. Walter replied, he's very proud. Maya smiled. I can tell. They walked toward checkout together. The same cashier who had once used Maya's account recognized them. She scanned Walter's groceries. Walter inserted his own card. The payment went through. He looked at Maya. See? Maya smiled. I see. Then Walter handed Daniel 2 grocery bags. Carry something. Daniel took them without argument. Outside, Walter walked ahead toward the car while Daniel and Maya followed a few steps behind. Daniel called her name. She looked at him. He nodded toward a coffee shop across the street. I was thinking we could get coffee sometime. Maya raised an eyebrow. You're asking? Daniel smiled. Yes, not scheduling. No, not assigning. No, not acquiring. Daniel laughed. Definitely not acquiring. Maya considered him for a moment. 1 coffee. Daniel nodded. 1 coffee. Walter shouted from the car that frozen food existed for a reason, and they were wasting daylight. Maya laughed and walked ahead. Daniel stood there for half a second watching his father complain while Maya loaded groceries into the trunk. Months earlier, he had found her name at the bottom of a receipt and assumed the important part of the story was the money. It never had been. The important part was that Maya had noticed a man quietly putting food back on a shelf and cared enough to ask why. She kept caring even after Daniel took away the job that had first connected them. And when he tried to repay her, rehire her, and repair everything according to his own terms, she refused until he finally understood that respect was not something a powerful person handed down. It was something he demonstrated by listening when the other person had the power to walk away. Walter opened the passenger door and yelled, Daniel! Daniel picked up the last grocery bag. Maya glanced at him and smiled. Carry something. Daniel smiled back. I'm learning. And this time, he was.